What's going on, awesome people? All right, so here's the plan. Over the next few weeks, you're probably only going to see me, unless we break this up and throw in a how-to video or something. I know we promised earlier that we would do not even a how-to, a what's in Tony's bag video. We haven't done it yet, so unless we throw that in here, the next, I would actually say 3 to 4 weeks, we are going to do a series called Truth in the Truck, Marcus's life story. And I know some people may be sitting there going, we don't care. Well, that's cool, you don't have to. But one thing I will say is I've had some events happen in my life that honestly are a testimony to who I am, where I am, and is 100% without a doubt because of God. And I honestly believe that number one, it'll help somebody. Number two, it gives God glory. And sometimes it's just good to get stuff off your chest. So I will do my best to break it up over the next few weeks, especially because we are running into the postseason for wrestling. So trying to get spare time right now is really hard to come by, hence Truth in the Truck. Which honestly, if it does well and Tony agrees to it, heck, why not? Let's make this a weekly thing where we do a real short video and drop some truth bombs on some stuff. Who knows? But I do know that my life story is important and will be helpful. So without further ado, let's get into it. As most of you might know, my name is Marcus. I'm 41 years old, born and raised in Georgia in the United States. Great parents for the most part. Blessed that mine are still together. But I do have officially 2 older brothers and 1 unofficial older brother. Weird story. We'll get into that maybe. But most people look at me like, normal guy. Hasn't been through a whole lot. Whatever. Truth is, we all go through stuff in life. Some worse than others. Sometimes people's shoes are a little more difficult to walk in. I've met plenty of people in my life that I personally feel like they've walked a much tougher road than me. But I can tell you I have some skeletons in my closet that carry heavy scars. And some bright moments as well, let's be honest. So, at a very young age, as the story goes, when I was about 3-ish, toddler age anyway, I was nearly hit and ran over by a car. And I know that can happen to a lot of people. Obviously, I was a mischievous, curious kid, and decided to chase a puppy into the road where a UPS truck nearly ran me over. Honestly, I remember the puppy. I don't remember the rest of it. So without a doubt, that's 100% a blessing from God, right? give kudos to my uncle. He's the one that grabbed me. Apparently right before I got ran over. We can go a few months down the road. I don't know how many of you remember kerosene heaters or even know what kerosene heaters are, but apparently I tried, attempted, if not did drink kerosene from a jug for the kerosene heater. That I kind of remember. I remember being wrapped up in a little blanket throwing up red Kool-Aid in the hospital. Horrible experience. Side note, if you grew up in the country, even after a young age, probably your youth, teenage years, maybe even adulthood, you've probably drank some diesel or some gas a time or two trying to siphon it to, whether it's lawn equipment, tractors, you know, farm equipment, your cars, whatever. So I will say that wasn't the last time that I unfortunately tasted something of that nature. Somewhere between 4 and 5 years old, I went through not one but 2 hernia surgeries because, like I said, I was a curious kid and apparently thought I was He-Man as well, because tried picking up some stuff that was too heavy for me. Ended up with a bowel hernia near the groin. If you don't know what that is, look it up. I'm not really gonna go into that. You know, first attempt, they apparently missed it, or I re-herniated it a few months down the road and actually had to have the surgery again. I remember that too. I remember sitting in the hospital wondering why I was there. The second one anyway. The first one I have no clue. I remember when we left, Mom and Dad, now this is the 80s, so people don't get your feelings hurt, don't get offended, don't be dropping bad comments. Oh, your parents were horrible. I remember when we left the hospital, they didn't put me in the seat, they didn't put me in a car seat because it was the early 80s. That was still fairly common not to do that kind of thing. I remember them setting me on the console and let me ride on the console for a little while on the way home. You know, but here's the one that so far, you know, I guess really that seems maybe kind of normal to a lot of people. But here's the one that shocked my family, because it's a secret that I held for, I know, 25 years before my family ever found out. The only person that ever knew before my family did was my ex-wife. And honestly, it's not hard to discuss anymore. It's awkward more than it is hard. But I'll just throw this out there. I'm a 1 in 6 for boys that have been raped or molested. Honestly, I don't really remember the exact age, but I know it was between somewhere 5 and 6 years old. I'd like to tell you that it happened multiple times, with all due respect. I mean, obviously I wouldn't like to tell you that, period. I'd prefer not to be saying that I ever went through it at all. But honestly, I only remember the one time, and it's probably because I'd done a really good job of hiding it, holding it in, not letting people know. Obviously, if my family didn't know until, I know I was at least somewhere between 30 and 34 years old before my parents ever knew that it ever happened. Like I said, honestly, it's not hard to talk about. It's awkward. It was somebody that I knew. And honestly, they weren't a whole lot older than me. And I know this is going to sound weird to a lot of people. I obviously didn't want it to happen to me. But to be honest, I was convinced it was okay. Very weird thing too. And I'm sure, you know, I spent a lot of time coaching years later, you know, the last better part of a decade with kids, and I've learned a lot about this stuff. The statistics behind it, how it happens, the whole grooming process, how it's most likely to happen. And the crazy part about that is, honestly, I've never been mad at the person. I've never said, God, why me? With that situation. The truth is, I still see the person every now and then. Don't get me wrong, I forgave them a long time ago, but it ain't necessarily somebody I want to spend time with. And it's not so much because of that as it is the crowd. I'll just say it like that. And the company that is kept in that circle. You know, as horrible of a situation it is, and I know for some it's way worse. I know for some they remember way more. Now, don't get me wrong, I do remember details of the one encounter that I remember. I'm not sharing that. No one needs to know that. It's a horror story. You don't need to know. You know, not that I couldn't, just you don't need to know that. But truthfully, as tough as that is, I honestly, like I said, I forgave the person a long time ago. I know a lot of people can't say that, and I know, and I get it. Trust me, I get it. For me, it's a God thing. You know, I tell people all the time that I'm probably one of the most forgiving people you will ever meet in your entire life. And it's by no design of my own. You know, that's the reason I said a part of it, you know, a part of this series is for other people to see how God works in your life, or how God can work in your life if you allow Him to. And truthfully, that's the only reason I've been able to forgive that situation and many others that you'll probably hear about as we go along with this. Is it hard? Is it difficult? Sometimes. Do I think about it every now and then? Of course. Anytime you're hurt, mentally, physically, made vulnerable, you think about it. Not angry. And honestly, I pray that one day that when I go upstairs to meet God in heaven, I honestly hope that person's there. Like I said, truthfully, knowing what I know now about how all of it happens, person was just doing what had been done to them. It was something that had been normalized, that was okay. So for anybody listening and watching, if you have a similar story and you've never told anybody, find somebody you can trust, whether it's a therapist, a pastor, it doesn't matter. You need to tell somebody. It's a very, very, very important part of healing. And I know you may be thinking, that stuff you don't heal from. Everything heals. The question is, how much scar tissue you're going to allow to be there. And that's up to you. And I know it's a sensitive subject. And probably way more sensitive for guys than girls. Not that it's any less damaging, because it's not. But guys are designed, or at least told, that it doesn't happen. You don't say nothing. You're a guy. It doesn't matter who you are. If there's something you're going through like that, reach out to somebody you can trust. There's hotlines. Go find them. Take a chance, reach out, take that outlet, and at the very least, begin to get it off your chest. Like I said, for me, it was God. You know, yeah, it's probably one of the toughest moments of my life, and probably tougher now than it was then in some aspects of it, because when you tell the story, you do kind of relive it. That's okay. If it helps somebody, I'll go through it. It's okay. I sure will. Any day of the week. But moving on, because I don't want these things to be super long, but man, we moved around a lot as a kid. Even though I grew up in a small town in North Georgia, for most of my life, we seemed to have moved around a lot when I was really young, and then as we got into school, we still moved around quite a bit for a few years. Sometimes it was just in the same town, but we moved a lot. Second, third, fourth grade, moved out of state quite a bit, man. I've lived in Alabama, I've lived in Texas, I've lived in New Mexico, I've lived in Arizona. Don't get me wrong, there's been great memories with all of them. I don't care who you are. You know, you get uprooted after settling in, especially as a kid. That's hard sometimes, especially when your dad's a truck driver and most of the time he's gone. Literally until I was 13 years old, even though my parents were still together, every other weekend. You know, sometimes it was every weekend Dad come home for about a day and a half and he was gone again. You know, the plus side to that is, man, we spent a lot of time in big trucks on the road as kids. I've seen all kind of areas and parts of this country. You would think I'd get more emotional about the last little piece of information that I gave out, but no. Man, I cherish those moments on the road with Dad, and sometimes as a family. Dad put me and my brother and Mom, we'd all get in the truck and we'd be gone for a week at a time, just cruising across the country. And I don't take those memories for granted. Those are some of the best memories of my life. But it also brought some bad ones. You know, my parents fought a lot when I was a kid. Nothing ever got physical that I can remember. But there was a lot of fighting. Difference of opinions because Dad being gone and money being spent, moving around. And then there was always my older brother, and then my oldest, maybe is my brother, maybe ain't my brother. He's supposed to be my dad's kid from another marriage, but right before that ex-wife of my dad, a couple years before she had passed away, she actually told my dad that my oldest brother, or his oldest son, wasn't actually his. Don't know if it's true. That brother spent a lot of time in and out of our life, and honestly, a lot of time in and out of jail. If he is, he is. If he ain't, he ain't. I don't see him. I haven't seen him in over a decade. God love him. I wish the best for him. But I still got my other two brothers. They're both half brothers. One gave me a lot of crap, beat up on me a lot. The other one was in and out with his oldest with his older brother. But there's been times that my dad would be gone for 3 months at a time, 2 months at a time, because his ex-wife would put him in jail over child support stuff that wasn't even true. You know, so there's a lot in the childhood. Here's a good one for you. When I was 8 years old, I remember it clearly. It was summer, I was 8 years old. I hung myself. Hold up, calm down. It wasn't on purpose. I wasn't trying to kill myself. I thought I was Tarzan, and we had hung up a single rope swing in the backyard. And Mom and them had always told us when we done it, don't swing on it by yourself in case something happens. I tend to do a lot of stuff on my own. Always have. I swung out off the little embankment that we had, the rope wrapped around my throat. Yeah, I hung myself. Can't tell you how quick it was, or how, you know, I don't know how long I was there. Obviously, I'm still here, so I do remember squealing like a pig being chased. And the same uncle that grabbed me out of the road when I was 3 was the same one that pulled me out of that tree. It's funny, he's actually the one that taught me how to swim too. And he also gave me my first job as a truck driver. Played a part, for sure. Let's see, and I guess we'll end it right here because this is getting kind of long. No, you know what? Let's end that right there. We're going to end it right here, and I will pick up around the age 10 or 11 years old. 3rd, 4th grade. So next week we'll pick up around that 3rd, 4th grade, 10, 11-year-old age, and we'll get through the teen years. But yeah, there's a story to tell, and I'm here to tell it. So anyway, guys, that's going to be it for me this week. That's it from Truth in a Truck. And as always, God loves you. We love you. And if you can't hug somebody, smile and wave, because you never know whose life it might change. We'll see y'all next week for the teen years. See y'all then.